Hi friends, welcome back to my channel. Thank you so much for clicking on this video and for being here today. So in today's video, I'm going to be talking a little bit about binge eating, specifically the reasons why you may be struggling with binge eating, as well as ways that you can work towards overcoming it. Something I've noticed with people who struggle with binge eating or binge eating disorder is that a lot of the time we don't realize why we're struggling. We don't realize why we binge eat. We can't pinpoint the catalyst that kind of pushed us over the edge into disordered territory. And because of that, a lot of us just accept that binge eating is a part of who we are. That was at least my experience. I had convinced myself that I binge ate just because I was inherently a binge eater. I didn't realize there was a reason that was pushing me to binge eat. I didn't realize that binge eating is usually a symptom of something else. So the first reason why you may be struggling with binge eating, and I think this one is common, and that is trauma, or more specifically, untreated trauma. Not everyone who deals with trauma or has PTSD is going to lean on binge eating as a coping mechanism. There are many things people turn to when dealing with trauma. It could be alcohol abuse, drug abuse. I did a little bit of research on this, and a statistic I found was that over 24% of women with BED, so binge eating disorder, meet the criteria for post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD. So at least 1/4 of the women dealing with BED have PTSD. The reason why people dealing with trauma may turn to binge eating is the same reason why they may turn to any of the other behaviors I just mentioned, but it's usually because it gives you a sense of control. When you've experienced something where your control was stripped from you, when your agency was stripped from you, when you were put in the place of victimhood, it is common to lean on other things that give you back that sense of control. And unfortunately, a lot of the time that manifests as self-harm. I know when we hear the term self-harm, the first thing we think about is usually physical self-harm, so maybe cutting yourself, burning yourself, but there are other ways that you can engage in self-harming behavior, and that includes binge eating. Binge eating can easily become a destructive outlet to cope with pain, to cope with memories, to cope with trauma. This is because it can help numb your emotions, it can help you feel disconnected from your body. A lot of the time when you go through traumatic things, especially as a child, you grow into an adult that believes that you need to be punished for the things that you experienced, which of course is not the case at all, but what we're talking about, all of these things are usually happening at a subconscious level. If this sounds like it could be you and you could be a trauma-based binge eater, the best thing you can do for yourself is to seek professional help. Doing therapy gives you the opportunity to deconstruct a lot of what you're going through. It gives you the opportunity to understand why you turn to food or whatever your coping strategy is. A therapist is going to help you confront the things that are making you binge eat. That's what I meant when I said that binge eating is typically the symptom of something else. If you are binge eating because of PTSD or trauma, you need to work towards fixing whatever the trauma is. Because if you can fix the trauma, all of your self-destructive habits have a higher chance of being overcome as well. It is so much harder to overcome self-destructive habits if you are not fixing the root cause. Okay, so the second reason why you may be struggling with binge eating, this is the category I fall under, and it is you have an untreated or undiagnosed mental health condition. So I know we were just talking about mental health, we were just talking about trauma, but the reason why this is its own category is because trauma is something that happens to you as you go through life. It is something that is developed, while a lot of mental health conditions you are born with. So it's not necessarily something that you experienced that is causing you to binge eat. It's something that has gone untreated or undiagnosed. There are a ton of conditions that could be causing you to binge eat. In my case, it's ADHD, but it could also be autism, bipolar, BPD, basically any condition that causes you to have lower levels of dopamine. Studies find that 1/3 of all people with binge eating disorder also exhibit signs of undiagnosed or untreated ADHD. That statistic blew my mind because to me, like 1 in 3, that's a lot of people. That's a lot of people dealing with binge eating that probably don't realize why. Obviously, binge eating isn't the only way you can cope with dopamine deficiency. There are a ton of ways, some of which I am a victim of myself, namely impulse spending. Binge eating just so happens to be the one that a lot of people fall into because it is so easily accessible. High fat, high sugar, high carby foods are found cheap. They're found cheap at the grocery store. You can go get a whole box, a whole bag, whatever, of chocolate for $1. But if this does sound like you, there are a couple steps you can take to work towards feeling better, to getting this under control. The first, like before, is talk therapy. Therapy in this situation is hopefully going to help you develop coping strategies that don't involve food. It can help you strategize how to deal with binge eating tendencies. I know when I was in therapy for binge eating, something we did was try to create ways to deconstruct what I was feeling in the moment. So like asking yourself, are you really hungry? Are you just hungry because you're bored? How will you feel if you binge eat? What can you do instead of binge eating? There is also medical intervention. This is another thing you can do if you are really struggling and you've tried everything. I know that my ADHD medication, Vyvanse, is also used to treat binge eating disorder. There are multiple medications. You would just need to make an appointment with your doctor, of course, because I am not here to tell you what to go on. Okay, so on to the third and final reason why you may be struggling with binge eating, and that is you are a lifelong yo-yo dieter. Basically, you're someone who has dieted for your entire life. You can't remember a time where you weren't worried about what you're eating, what your body looks like. People in this camp were sometimes put on diets as children. So maybe you had a parental figure who was always monitoring your food. They put you on a diet way too young to control your weight. Maybe you had a parental figure who was obsessed with dieting themselves, so that kind of planted the seed in your brain really young. Regardless of how it started, the point is that an obsession was planted within you at a very young age. Something I noticed when I talk to lifelong yo-yo dieters is that they genuinely don't know how to live life without dieting. They've never lived through a period of time where they weren't worried about what they were eating. And because of that, they have no knowledge or understanding of what a normal diet should look like. They are perpetually stuck in the binge and restrict cycle. And since their whole life has circled around dieting, they are understandably afraid of making the moves to stop it. It is comfortable for them. They don't know life without it. Lifelong dieters typically associate their value as a person with what their body looks like or what they're eating. If they're eating really well, and by well I mean usually restrictive, they feel like they can be proud of themselves, they feel confident in themselves, and if they are eating poorly, they feel like they are failing. The only way to overcome this is to deconstruct it and find new ways to deal with your insecurities. Something a therapist helped me do was change my perception of myself, kind of move away from the idea of like body positivity, I guess, which body positivity is a great movement if it works for you. Body positivity meaning like you are beautiful no matter what, you are beautiful no matter the size of your body. And the therapist really helped me change my mindset from me being beautiful to me being worthy regardless of my beauty. So a shift from body positivity to body neutrality. Therapy will also help you identify why you feel the need to diet, why you keep yourself in the confinement of dieting. The only way you are gonna overcome it and free yourself from a cycle as vicious as binging and restricting is to actively work on deconstructing why you do what you do. Just remember that you are not alone in dealing with this. Binge eating affects millions and millions of people around the world. I hope this video was helpful. I hope it gave you something to think about, something that you can reflect on, and hopefully you take the information and you use it to get yourself the help you need.